He spent 12 seasons in the National Football League, an all-pro defensive end by way of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Beat Train, Bertrand Berry. And, Mike Grose. It's Train and Grose on the No Bull Podcast Network.
See, it's all better.
That caught me off guard.
It's all better. Did you hear how excited he was?
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah.
For you, Grose.
Only the best for you, brother.
I don't know what to think about that.
What do you mean you don't want to think about that? You've been saying how, the big voice guy was very mean to you for the first 3 months of this show. Well, now he
So
gave you a
disrespectful.
proper introduction.
Is that proper? Proper.
What you say, Hammer? Proper.
Proper.
Let me break him off something proper.
Wow.
By way of, I don't even know where I'm by way of. So, I
So
don't
you
even know how
want
to
the
say it.
full boxing treatment.
Well, when we started the conversations, the negotiations, the back and forth to bring this on, and one of the things that I said was, what I would have liked to seen in the introduction was a combined 12 years of NFL experience.
Yeah.
And
There
then
you go.
his name and mine.
Well, if you add it up,
because that's not a lie.
it's still what he said. He just said it differently.
Yeah, I guess.
How you feeling, guys?
Feel good.
Feel all right. Feel okay.
That's good. You like your new intro?
I can live with it. It's a work in progress.
I wanted it to sound like normal and then hit you with something different in the middle. And
it's
then-
different.
And then now that's different.
It's different.
And then we'll make a whole new one, new music and
There
everything.
you go.
Yeah.
We'll save that though.
Yeah.
So when we do like our look back, like the 100th anniversary
Okay.
show,
There you go.
we can roll that back. And
All right.
Roll that beautiful footage.
before we do this, I think we talked about this in November.
Okay.
So I want to take this. You know how I drive around and things drive around when I'm allowed out of the house, Sean Crespin,
Right.
which isn't
Right.
COVID lockdown. It's a full month after Christmas.
Yeah.
Is it okay for people to still be displaying the Christmas lights? Like
No.
turning them on?
No.
Like I understand some people never take them down.
Pump the brakes.
We got a lot of people that put them up well before, like a month ahead. Nobody says anything. Like if you on November 27th,
Is this happening in your neighborhood?
I was out the other night, and there are several houses.
Several?
Like this is not a one-off.
Okay.
I like to say, oh, that's a lazy person. No, there are several people still in, let's call it Central Phoenix, that are still proudly illuminating their Christmas decorations.
Okay, I can't be a hypocrite because I did say, because of 2020, you are allowed to do whatever it is to make you happy.
Okay.
Which
I
I
think
like
that's
that.
that's a year. So
I like
you
that.
get a year grace.
Right.
A year.
Yeah, you get a year because
Technically, this is-
2020 was a year.
Okay.
Right. And
It's
it's
a whole year.
And we're still in the Christmas 2020, right? Because it was December 25th,
Right.
2020.
And we're still seeing 2020-ish type stuff going on.
Sure are.
So,
yeah,
know.
the flip of the camera our calendar didn't
yeah,
change
yeah,
everything.
Still some stuff going on.
Yeah.
Lost some good people already.
Can I ask you a question about these lights?
Yeah.
Are they just like the the yellowish white lights, or are they the
No, this is full-on
multicolors?
Red, green,
Full-on color display
No,
up
see,
on the
yeah,
peak of the
see,
roof
no,
and in the trees.
I don't care if it's making how happy it's making. That's awful.
reindeer and Santa too.
What I saw were just lights.
Okay.
So I want to be fair. I didn't see any like
Big
blow
inflatable
up.
snowman.
Yeah, I did not see any of that. And it's been cold lately, so it feels like Christmas. But we're a month plus after Christmas, and they still had the lights up. And I thought, man, this
Hold up.
That's what you thought.
way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, we had to get that out
Yeah.
for sure.
So I'll report out on that because you know how little things turn into big things. with
That's
me.
right.
Speaking of the same, though, how about that for a segue?
There you go.
Newsflash, Tom Brady's going to a Super Bowl.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
10th Super Bowl in a 21-year career, which, again, we'll talk about Tom Brady in a minute, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go into Green Bay and get this win. And I think when we saw the playoff field set,
Yes.
one of the things that we said is, boy, I do not want any part of going through Green Bay in late January.
Yes.
And we said, look at the teams that we think are possible, right? You take the Washington football team out of that equation. We talked about the possibility of being the Saints.
Yes.
Possibly the Rams. And they did make their trip there, and we know how that ended. And, of course, Tampa and I'll be honest, I said, I don't see Tampa going through New Orleans and winning, given what happened. But if they get there, that's a tough assignment, even with Tom Brady.
Yes.
I'm eating crow today.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people eating crow, including his former coach back in New England. But that's a story for another day. We'll get into that a little bit later. There are no words to describe Tom Brady anymore. He is simply the best. There is no debate. There is no more discussion about who is the GOAT, who is the best quarterback, who's the best NFL player of all time. He has silenced all of that debate. He is the best football player to have ever, and I mean ever, put on a uniform. His career is one of those where if you were to have a game console, you couldn't get that kind of success playing Nintendo or Xbox or PlayStation. You couldn't have that kind of success that Tom Brady has had. And you think about the fact that he was the 199th player in his draft picked.
Yeah.
He was a 6th-round pick in his own draft, and he's a guy now that is all of a sudden talked about as not one of the best football players ever. He may be one of the best athletes ever. If they were to do that 100 greatest athletes again, Tom Brady has to be in the top 5. There is no doubt about it.
Seemingly ageless, and
43,
right? But you look at they pictures of him. They did the progression. I forget which game it was. They did the Drew Brees.
First Super Bowl.
No, they did when the Saints and the Buccaneers played. They did a side by side. Tom Brady, Drew Brees. They did from their rookie year to present day of how they've aged.
Yes.
Tom Brady looks better now than he did when he started.
That draft picture where he's got the arms spread out
and he's cleaned up and
that's a tough spot right there,
right? But, so Tom Brady, ageless.
He's getting better with age.
My wife calls it the Illuminati.
He's Benjamin Button.
Thank you.
That is a great way to. That's the first time I've heard that. It's a good way to put it.
He's Benjamin Button now.
Yeah, you look at celebrities.
Yes,
like he's like that. Like you just take the football out for a minute. Like this man is not aging. You look at him physically, and you're like, damn, he's 40-some years old. No, you're not. But then you do it. And I saw remember the 100th anniversary NFL where they had all the football players in the room and they filmed that commercial.
That's right.
Great commercial.
The gold ball, the gold football on top of the cake. And and Tom Brady's sitting at the table and they want him to get into it. And he gives all his rings to the dude next to him. He goes, here, hold these.
Hold these.
And he just.
Well, he's going to add another one.
You think?
Well, he gets one either way. You either get a conference championship one or you get
but for Tom Brady, the only one that matters is the big ring. We'll do a preview later on, but
he's got 4 of those too, by the way.
That's true too. The 10th Super Bowl in 21 years. The fact that he's doing it at this advanced age
with another team,
and you, Sean, and I were talking about this before. Does that answer the question once and for all? Not only about the greatest player, but what the recipe was in New England.
Yes.
You look at where the Patriots ended up this year. And I don't know if I'm ready to go all in and say it's that black and white to say it's – because you got to give Bill Belichick some credit here.
You do have to remember the Matt Castle year. Tom Brady breaks the leg in the first game of the season. They still go 11-5.
And make no mistake, Tom Brady at the beginning of his career is not the Tom Brady now.
Nope.
Because those teams were led squarely by their defense. It was the defense and the running game that clearly was the catalyst for the first 2 Super Bowls, to be sure.
I think he doesn't get enough credit for being somewhat of a chameleon throughout his career. I know everybody wants to say, well, was he a system quarterback in New England? But in New England, you could pick different systems. What you're talking about now, he started out, it was a run game. It was kind of like, like anytime you have a young quarterback and they have success, run game, defense, equaled his first couple.
Don't blow it.
Yes, exactly. But then Randy Moss is there. Now they're setting records, NFL records, trying to take the top off every play. Now they're airing it out. Then as he gets a little bit older, it goes to more of a true West Coast type offense, more crossers, more extended
ball out of his hands quick.
Exactly right. And now you're back with BA, and it's almost another completely different situation. Exactly. So he doesn't get enough credit. You can't call him a system quarterback because amongst these 20 years, you could say he's been in 4 different systems.
What system do you want me in is his question.
And I just keep going to Super Bowls.
He does. Sean asked you this, so credit where credit's due. Before we came on and started recording, what is you've done this throughout the course of this season when we looked at things and you talk about rookie quarterbacks and how you would prepare. How do you prepare for Tom Brady if you're a defense? Like what's the book? What when you look at Tom Brady and say, here's what we're coming up. If you're in Kansas City's locker room right now, What is it about Tom Brady?
The secret to Tom Brady has always been a front four. If you have four guys up front that can get after him and make him uncomfortable and not allow him to sit in the pocket and survey the field, because if you give him time, the man has played 21 years. There is no defense that he hasn't seen. There is no coverage. There is no hide type of coverage, no disguise that he hasn't seen before. So if you just let him sit back there and play 7-on-7, he's going to absolutely kill you. We've seen the Giants, we've seen the Eagles, we've seen other teams that have had the formula, and the formula was we need pass rushers. We need guys that can get Tom Brady on the ground, get him off his spot, get him uncomfortable in the pocket. If you have those type of guys and then you can play coverage with the other 7, then you have a chance of being successful.
How many times did you play him in your 12-year career? Do you see him?
I played Tom Brady, I believe, 5 times. And I did not have a lot of success. I had a lot of sacks against Tom Brady, but I didn't have the overall success. I think I beat him twice in my career.
Did you see him in college?
No, I didn't see him in college. I was already gone. That just lets you know how old I am, one. But you know, Tom's been around for quite some time.
Well, when he came out of – I'm a Michigan fan, right? When he came out of Michigan, you talk about it at the outset about the fact that he was a 6th-round pick.
199th pick.
And people didn't look at that and say, well, this is complete disrespect to Tom Brady. I mean, that's pretty much what his college career was, right? I mean, he was a good college quarterback.
Him and Scott Hansen were hand in hand. They were 1A,
exactly.
1B. Yeah.
And we're Scott Hansen right now, right? So, you look at it and talk about the fact that the Patriots, when they drafted him, you might say they were geniuses at the time, but
he was a serviceable backup.
When you draft somebody in the 6th round, you know what the real plan is here.
Yes.
And to have that turn into this type of career is absolutely remarkable. Conversely, on the other side, Green Bay, you've got this game at home.
First one for Aaron Rodgers too, by the way.
Right. And you've got to be left scratching your head right now. You look at this. Questionable play calls by the defense. We talked before we came on. A lot of good conversation before we came on.
Right.
That score at the end of the first half that you missed, was
what was the defense? What were they doing?
That
in
was
defense?
Whatever it was. Because people are talking about that pass interference, but whatever. That you got to look at the entirety of the game, and that breakdown by by the Green Bay defense on that one. You could make an argument that cost you the game right there, because that was a huge tide change in that game. And
it shifted the momentum going into halftime, and I think both teams have a much different outlook going into the halftime had they not had that 7 points going in with 1 second left. And I just think of Coach Pettin, the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, why didn't you use the timeout? Was it a situation that you didn't have any more? Why would you stay in that coverage where you have a safety over the top of Scotty Miller, one of the fastest players in the entire NFL? And they call timeout. They should have had to pick the play before, and then you bring out that different personnel after you take the punt team off and bring the regular offense back on, and you add that guy. Somebody should have been, hey, this guy's on the field. There should have been an alert that, hey, maybe Tom Brady's going to take a shot, and they didn't, and it wound up costing them.
And Green Bay didn't take advantage of 3 Tom Brady interceptions as well. You get 6 points out of 3 interceptions in that game. Also critical to the fact that you can't do that. You're not going to win the game.
Yes.
I don't care where you're playing it. And I think that was very telling when you saw the inability to punch it in. And then everybody's talked about the decision to kick the field goal when they did. And again, we've talked a lot about coaches learning on the job here. And you see that a little bit, and obviously his NFL experience is more than what we have with the head coach here. But, you get into these where you got to make a decision right here, right now. And, that's what you get, I guess.
Mike, I understood where he was coming from. The decision to kick the field goal, I understood it. You had 4 opportunities to stop the clock. You had over 2 minutes left, so you were going to get 4 chances to stop the clock and potentially give your defense or give your offense a chance to get the ball back with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, the league MVP. But you have to also look at the personnel on the other side.
Yeah.
That's Tom freaking Brady on the other side.
Exactly.
You are not going to get that ball back. I don't care what happens, how he's going to manipulate it. There is no way Tom Brady in his 21st season with an opportunity to go to another Super Bowl is going to let that guy back on the field to give him an opportunity to beat him and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That just you knew that there was no way Tom Brady was going to give up the ball.
Well, especially when he only has to pick up a first down, right? You're not saying, Tom, go the length of the field, get a field goal or a touchdown.
Talking about hold
he
it.
just needed
Just
to get
hold
a
the
first down. He just needed to pick up a first down.
Yeah.
Ball game was over. Yeah. But even if when you really think about late game situations, you're counting possessions, and for the Packers, at 4th and goal, you have to get a touchdown, obviously, in a 2-point conversion. If you don't pick it up, they're backed up, and your defense has to get a stop, and you have to score a touchdown.
Right.
After you kick the field goal, what do you have to do?
Score a touchdown.
You got to get a stop, and you have to score a touchdown. You literally did not improve what your goal needed to be by kicking that field goal. Either way, you had to get a stop and a touchdown. Whether you kick a field goal or you don't get the 4th down attempt, you have to get a stop and a touchdown on the other side. So it literally changed nothing to me. It made no sense at all.
While we're questioning the Green Bay coaching staff, the decision to go for a 2-point conversion in the 3rd quarter also, again, because that changes the dynamic, because before the field goal, it was an 8-point decision. You kick the field goal, it's a 7-point. I just don't understand. Some of the decision-making by the Green Bay coaching staff.
Analytics, man.
It drives me
Analytics.
nuts. Oh, it drives me nuts.
Yeah. Meanwhile, AFC.
Oh.
Patrick Mahomes comes back, any questions about, and I guess technically after the fact you find out I'm no doctor, but so they say he didn't technically have a concussion. He had the, what was it? What did Darth Vader do in the movies?
He had a pinched nerve, yeah.
Where it choked off the,
Vulcan,
that's why.
The Vulcan death grip over here.
Darth Vader had a grip, and he was losing blood supply to the head. Again, to me, it's the head. But whatever. So he's healthy.
He didn't lose arm strength, did he?
Not at all.
No.
You did see, and I got to ask you this, but we're not right now. But remember to tell me about turf toes, because that was part of it. But again, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, they're going back.
They're going back, and this team they're the anti-Pee-wee lower level teams, because everything that coaches have told you from Pee-wee all the way up to college, they spit in the face of it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just turn it on and off. You can't just flip a switch. Well, yeah, they can, because the Buffalo Bills scored the first 9 points and the last 9 points, and that game was still a laugher. So literally
14 points.
The Kansas City Chiefs can turn it on whenever they choose to turn it on. And when you have weapons like Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, and it doesn't matter. The fact that they gave the Buffalo Bills basically those first 9 points with the McCole Hardman, the fumble on the punt return, and they missed the extra point on the touchdown, and that proved to be one of those things where it's like, oh, we saw them flinch. Like, they got everything handed to them, but they still flinch. Even in that, you still didn't feel like the Kansas City Chiefs were in any trouble. And I think, to me, that speaks to the talent that the Kansas City Chiefs have. It speaks to the coaching that they have with Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy. And when you have that type of player in Patrick Mahomes, I don't care what the score is, you are going to have a chance to win. And to me, that is the ultimate cheat code that this team possesses.
We talk about this in the NBA, where your teams have to, A, learn how to win, and B, get in front of the team that's there staring them down.
Yes.
I don't know if that rule holds as strong in the NFL because of the change in rosters and everything like that. But when you look at the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Buffalo Bills, it feels like the Buffalo Bills got there, and now they know what their next hurdle is.
Yes.
You look at it, because that core is going to be together for a while with the young quarterback in Buffalo. 13-3, I mean, yeah, absolutely, you're disappointed in that loss if you're a Bills fan. Mm-hmm. But to see where that franchise is after suffering for so long, you got to feel good about that. You got to feel good about their future. Kansas City's just that much better than they are, and they just got to figure out how to get over that hump.
When we talk about the Buffalo Bills, the quarterback went from, and here were his 3 years. He went from 10 touchdowns to 20 touchdowns to 40 touchdowns.
Yep.
So he doubled his output each and every year. Like, you talk about a literal ascent to the top of his game. Josh Allen has taken, as you said, every single step that he's needed to take along the way to become one of those top quarterbacks in the entire NFL. And that still wasn't enough, Mike. He still wasn't close to Patrick Mahomes and what Patrick Mahomes has at his disposal. Because if you were to look at this team, and people talk about, well, is it the talent around Patrick Mahomes or is it Patrick Mahomes? We had an opportunity to see that against the Cleveland Browns with Chad Henne. It was not the same offense with Chad Henne that it is with Patrick Mahomes. So you can have the best tight end arguably in the NFL. You can have one of the most unguardable receivers in the NFL in Tyreek Hill. But I'm telling you right now, that machine does not operate the same without Patrick Mahomes.
Super Bowl is set February 7th, Kansas City, home game for Tampa Bay. We'll break it down coming up in a little while. But I want to talk more football. There's a lot going on. This is going to be a fascinating offseason.
Especially for quarterbacks.
We'll talk about that next. Train and Grose. We'll be right back.
Train and Grose.
I was so dumbfounded by the new opening that I forgot to say, welcome to Train and Grose. We're at the train station
It
studio.
was nice, wasn't it? I thought it was nice.
I think dumbfounded works.
Okay.
Follow us on Twitter at Train and Grose. It's going to be a fascinating offseason in the NFL for a lot of reasons.
Yes.
And there's some things that we need to get to in the future that is going to be tabled because of this conversation.
Will there even be an offseason? That's the question.
Well, and that's they've already made some decisions about the combine.
There was a report that agents for incoming players and front office personnel have been told to expect an offseason similar to last year. So that could be them just planning for the worst, hoping for the best. But they have been informed to expect an offseason similar to last year, meaning no rookie minicamps, with most things being done over the Zooms of the world.
And before we get into it, Mike, can we just give a special shout out to the rookies that made the Pro Bowl this year?
Right?
Jefferson out in Minnesota and Chase Young in Washington to make a Pro Bowl with no offseason. As a rookie, I mean, like, it's hard enough as a veteran to make a Pro Bowl, and you've had plenty of offseason, but to be a rookie with no offseason, no practice time on the field, really, to get that done?
Well, I don't want to go too far down this path, but one of the things that the Players Association's kicking around saying, maybe we should change this CBA a little bit and modify your expectations of the players during the offseason, because we showed in 2020 that you can have a full NFL season without all the things that you make us do from the time the season ends to the time training camp starts.
That's a fair point, but I think when you start talking about quality of football too, there was a big disparage between the teams that were really, really good and the teams that weren't so good.
That's a fair point. How much time as a player did you spend so take out from the start of training camp to the end of whenever your last game was, whether that be the regular season or the postseason, how much time did you spend at the facility during the quote-unquote off-season?
I only took a week off, usually, maybe a week and a half, as far as not doing anything.
Right.
But as far as getting to the facility itself, I didn't spend a lot of time other than what was required, other than the off-season workouts, other than the OTAs and mini camps and all that kind of stuff, because you do have to give yourself a little space. You do have to detox from that facility because you're there so much during the season that you almost have to offset it by not being there as much during the offseason, but still doing something that's honing your craft, so to speak.
So take care of yourself physically, but give yourself a mental break.
Yes, indeed.
All right, we'll get back to that because I think that's a fascinating topic, and it'll be interesting to see how the players pursue that.
Yes.
And as Sean said, you may have another offseason similar to what you had last season as we, knock on wood, hopefully we're rounding a corner with COVID and all that. But, you still have a lot of precautions that have to be in place. So the news of the offseason, though, is going to be quarterback movement.
Yeah.
It's going to be quarterback movement, and we'll kick it off with my hometown.
Okay.
And you, Sean, and I, we got a group text going, and the announcement was made that the Lions and Matthew Stafford have agreed to part company. And what that means is that the Lions, because Matthew Stafford's got a couple years left on the contract, the Lions have agreed to move him.
Yes.
So it was he came and asked, and they're obliging, which teams sometimes won't do. And we'll see what happens down in Houston. But before we do that, can I just vent about the Detroit Lions?
Please go ahead.
And they suck.
Yes.
The Ford family, okay, you make nice cars, I guess, but you don't know how to run a football team.
Yeah.
You do not run. I mean, you look at what I've seen in my lifetime. I started watching the Detroit Lions when Billy Sims was wearing the Honolulu blue and silver.
Wow.
What happened to his career? Ended. Injuries. What great. Go back and look at some of the. If you've
Barry
never
Sanders,
watched
10 years.
Right, you never watched Billy Sims play though. Go back and
was
watch
a
some of
beast.
his highlights.
Yeah.
Like he was amazing.
And while you're there, Mike, just let me throw this into, why would you give two all-time running backs the same identical number?
It was a Ford family. And then you fast forward to Barry Sanders.
Sure.
Completely different than Billy Sims and a better running back. Arguably the greatest running back of all time.
What he did in 10 years, Mike.
What he did in 10 years with that team. And take nothing away from Emmitt Smith. Emmitt Smith, fine, Hall of Fame career.
Give him that
line. He did
line.
it with the Cowboys.
Give him that line.
Those wide receivers, that quarterback.
My goodness.
Just flip.
Yeah.
Put Emmitt Smith in Detroit, put Barry Sanders in Dallas. What happens? Ooh. But again, Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson recently, before Matthew Stafford's announcement was made, Calvin Johnson said, I am still so angry and so bitter.
Yes.
I don't know if he used the word bitter, but I'll use it for him. About how I was treated and things were handled and the culture in the Detroit Lions locker room. I can't go to the building to this day.
Wow.
You know, you've had, I don't know how many regime changes there, and he still won't go. And now Matthew Stafford makes the announcement, or the Lions make the announcement they've agreed to part company at his request.
Wow.
And, you know, it just continues. Sometimes, what's the old saying? If you want to know who people are, just listen. They'll tell you.
Yeah,
and that's the Lions. I mean, you were a free agent in the NFL.
Sure.
I mean, what's when you guys talk, when you look at it, like what would have taken you to go to Detroit? Like, I mean, you look at some franchises just have that stigma.
It would have taken the U.S. Mint, all of it, for me to go to Detroit, because you know the chances of you winning a Super Bowl are slim and none, because they are one of 4 teams that have never even been to a Super Bowl. You know the other 3?
Well, one's here. Oh, win. I thought you said win. Ben.
Gone.
Gone. Sorry. I wasn't even paying attention. Edit that out.
You see his face? No, that's
Edit
the
that
promo of the
no,
show.
edit it out.
Right?
Edit it out.
Yeah.
I
Delete
thought you
the
said
footage.
win. Did you say Ben or win?
Been to a Super Bowl. There's
Detroit,
4 teams.
Cleveland.
Yep.
Texas.
Jacksonville.
Yep.
Houston.
There you go.
See, I was paying attention. If I listen, I was paying attention.
There you go.
That was
face.
stupid.
I'm sorry.
Don't make me reach over this table.
What is that over there? Okay.
Make me
Anyway,
reading is fundamental.
moving right along.
You said Ben or win. Yes, I recall.
Oh, there's quite a few that haven't won a Super Bowl.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah. Just
Anyway,
keep
the
twisting
mint
knife,
to
Mike.
go to
Keep twisting the
Detroit.
knife. They would have taken the whole mint. Whole mint.
Yeah.
To get me to go to Detroit.
And I look at it now. You got a new coach, new general manager. Great. You know, he's going to bust people. What he's saying is, I'm going to bust the kneecaps. Whatever Coach Campbell's talking about. It's like
He had a wild press conference. He
it was
said, "We're
crazy.
gonna,
He's dropping. He's swearing.
yeah, when you get knocked down, we're gonna get back up. We're gonna bite your kneecap on the way back up. And when we get knocked down again, we'll do it again."
So
Wild.
there's another topic that we got to talk about too, because qualified candidates for these head coaching vacancies that have occurred in the NFL here in the last couple of weeks, it leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, there's a lot of, who is this guy? You got to go Google this guy. Like, where was he before this?
Yeah.
And what is his credentials?
I'm with you. I'm with you. And look, I don't for a second buy the – because I was in Denver when Eric Bieniemy played for the Buffs for CU.
Yes.
And so, follow his career. And, Andy Reid gets a lot of credit, which he should.
No question.
But learning right next to him and an architect of that offense, and he's not getting a look.
Well, something tells me he's getting the Houston Texans job. And the reason I say that is if it wasn't him, because you can't hire these guys until they're eliminated, they would have hired somebody by now.
But the thing that bothers me,
he's getting that job.
Yeah, the thing that bothers me about Eric Bieniemy is that coaches underneath him, quarterback coaches, wide receiver coaches, have gotten NFL jobs before the offensive coordinator. How does that work when he's supposed to be the most qualified? If he's supposed to be the most responsible for that side of the ball, how is it the guys underneath him are getting jobs before him? How many years do you have to get overlooked before you just say, you know what, maybe this isn't for me? And to be where he is as Eric Bieniemy, I just feel like he has to be thinking in the most private moments, like, damn, another one gets hired over me. Like, what do I have to do to be accepted? And that whole I don't interview well, that's a whole bunch of nonsense.
Forget about it. Yeah, let me throw this out there, though, for you. Let's look at it from his perspective. You just said it would take a whole mint truck to
get me to go to
get you to go to Detroit.
Yes.
He has potentially the greatest coordinator position in all of football. He's coaching Patrick Mahomes. He's under Andy Reid, learning with Andy Reid. He doesn't. Is it fair to say he doesn't necessarily have to take the dumpster fire that is the Houston Texans job right now. He can find, because let's be real, look at how difficult it is when you get your first head coaching job and it flames out, how difficult it is to get another one. So does he need to jump? I got to be perfectly honest. If I'm Eric Bieniemy and that's the one that's on the table, I'll be back with Andy Reid next year. I don't think I'm taking that job.
So it's the Josh McDaniels dilemma.
Exactly right.
So, he took the job in Denver, didn't quite have the talent, didn't quite have.
He wasn't ready.
He wasn't ready, and he wound up going back to New England, and he hasn't really accepted any major offers since. I get that aspect. You don't want to take a bad job as your first job, but why is it? I mean, there's only 32 of them.
Yeah.
And at some point, you have to go out there and make it a good job. I mean, if we were to say before BA took the Tampa Bay job, was that a great job? Was that one that people were actually lining up to go get? Because you think about the family that owned the team. I mean, there were a lot of cons, if you will, for that particular team. And I know we're going down a rabbit hole, Mike.
No, that's fine. No.
But, and I actually started it, so I'm actually most responsible. But I just think about there's so many topics right now going on in the NFL that you had to give that.
You do, and I think it links up well because we want to talk about quarterback movement.
Sure.
And John McClain down in Houston is reporting that in fact it's not Eric Bieniemy, and that's another thing that Deshaun Watson's upset about. Deshaun Watson apparently wanted Eric Bieniemy, and John McClain just put something out that it's Leslie Frazier and somebody else are the finalists for the job, and that's put Deshaun Watson in an even worse mood, if that's possible.
Trust is broken, Mike. And to me, when Deshaun Watson, a guy remember when Deshaun Watson was first drafted out of Clemson, his head coach called him Michael Jordan. If you pass on him, you pass it on Michael Jordan. Those were pretty prophetic words. He's pretty much lived up to that. The first thing that was reported that this guy did during the floods and during the hurricane was give his first check to the workers at the Houston Texans. So this guy has so much credibility and so much cachet built up in the city of Houston already, and he has done just about everything that has been asked of a franchise-type quarterback to do. He's won divisions. He's gotten them to the playoffs, and you reward him by trading away his best receiver. Now, we here in Arizona, we're thankful for it, but my goodness.
Agreed.
How do you expect this man to have any trust in the front office when you take away his best option at receiver, and he still led the league in receiving or in yards thrown? I mean, my goodness. And does the man show you that he can play?
It shows you how hard it is for players in the NFL also to dictate the movement. We talked a lot about NBA, the getting three guys together.
It's totally different.
Matthew Stafford, whatever happened, we don't know what the conversation was, but he went and he said, I want out. And the only reason he's on the list of players that are moving because the Lions said, okay.
Yes.
So Deshaun Watson can be upset. Deshaun Watson can, pitch a fit. What's his recourse? He doesn't have any recourse.
Right.
Because if you sit out, the clock stops ticking.
Yeah, and you lose money.
And you'll never get it back.
Yeah.
So, you look at that and say, okay, here's where we are. And Deshaun Watson's at the top of the list. Quarterback movement this offseason. You got potentially, what did you tell us, 18 teams could have new quarterbacks when this season starts.
Yeah, and there's only 32 teams, so that just lets you know the patience of these organizations it's non-existent. There is no patience. When you see a Tom Brady go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and they instantly make a Super Bowl run year one,
yep.
There is going to be very little patience, and people are and teams are going to be, hey, we need to win now. We need to make this splash move to get this guy that we feel like can take us to that next level, can get us over the hump, and you're seeing GMs and quarterbacks and head coaches pay a price for the lack of patience in today's NFL.
Let's look at the list. We won't get to everybody, but a couple of names that jump out at me. First, if I look at this, and Sean pointed me to a list that was tweeted out this week by Adam Schefter, a cool graphic that he had. Look at the oldsters. Ben Roethlisberger, is he back next year?
The number of his salary cap hit is impossible for him to be back at that number. He's got to do there's something has to be done before he can be for sure on that roster.
And I know there was issue with some of the wide receivers, man, but at the end there of this season, it was slow motion.
But look at his draft class. You're talking about Eli Manning, who's already retired.
Yep.
Phillip Rivers, who's
now
retired.
Yep.
And now you got Ben Roethlisberger, the last of the Mohicans, and he looks a shell of himself. He doesn't look like he can move. He's not the same Big Ben.
Like he's big. He's always big, but
he's a huge target now. I just feel like at some point after 17 years, it's time to move on.
A couple of older guys too, but with less fanfare. Ryan Fitzpatrick, the Harvard guy plays high school ball at Highland High School.
Shout out to the Hawks.
He seems like he won't get any headlines, and he will either not play or he'll turn up someplace next year and be in the mix. Is how I look at Ryan Fitzpatrick. Alex Smith.
My goodness.
That story. I don't know if you guys saw it on 60 Minutes. I mean, you heard the story. But I watched the 60 Minutes story on where they did an interview with the doctors and
the pictures
they had
that they showed?
the video and his leg.
Yeah.
My goodness, the fact that he didn't lose the leg and that he actually got in and helped lead his team to the playoffs is remarkable.
Comeback player of the year without question.
Without question. And you wonder, with him and his family, because his wife was right at his side during this whole thing, do they make a decision saying, you did it, you proved it to yourself, you proved it to everybody, and
walk off to the sunset?
Let's go. Like, you look at the fact that you want to, you talked about this, you want to be able to play with your kids and,
and go out on your own terms.
On your own terms.
I mean, he's going to – any kind of award for overachieving, he's going to win this year. An ESPY, comeback player of the year, you name it, whatever you can talk about perseverance. Alex Smith, his name should forever now be linked to whatever award that there is about perseverance and overcoming difficult situations.
And you look at what guys like, are you going to go to the broadcast booth? You're going to go to coaching? What are you going to do? This guy, sign him up for, like that
motivational speaking.
Put him on the circuit and take him around that story. And his work with the military, like I said, I thought I knew the story, but when you see that 60 Minutes in depth,
I saw it.
It was remarkable.
It's crazy.
Remarkable. Then you look at the rest of the list. You got a guy like the Mitchell Trubiskys of the world. Like, you can't move
Jared
him.
Goffs, Carson Wentz.
Cannot move him fast enough.
Yeah, but
Cam Newton's on that list, and I don't know where you put him. Is he down there with the old guys? Because he's not that old.
He doesn't have it anymore, Mike.
He's got a lot of miles on that body.
A lot of miles, a lot of wear and tear, and I think because he was such a physical style of quarterback, he took so many shots in the first part of his career. I think everything started to come back to bite him now, and watching him drop back and try to throw the ball, Mike, was one of the more painful things that I've seen in a long time watching football. And as a guy that played the game, there weren't a lot of things that made me cringe. Watching Cam Newton throw the ball this past season made me cringe.
And you look at Cam, all that's true, and you also appreciate how fast that Patriots roster degenerated. Like, that wide receiving core was bad.
But remember, too, Mike, they had the most people opt out for COVID.
7. Yep.
And you start –
real names, too.
Real names. I mean, starters on defense, guys that really could have helped that defense. And I think the season would have looked a little bit different. Maybe Buffalo doesn't have as many wins. Maybe they still have the AFC East crown, but maybe it doesn't look quite as impressive because maybe they took out a little chunk of flesh on their way to getting it done. Maybe they split with the Buffalo Bills. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you almost have to give Bill Belichick a mulligan to some degree. But still, back to that original point we talked about with Tom Brady, that discussion's over.
And then the last group I'll look at and kind of lump them into guys like your Tom Brady point earlier. I like who I got, but if I can find somebody better.
Oh, absolutely.
Dak Prescott, I'm looking at you. Jimmy Garoppolo, you're definitely on that list.
Jared Goff.
Yes. So can we find our Tom Brady? Can we figure out how to pry Deshaun Watson out of Houston? Can we convince Matthew Stafford that we're the place you should end up and say goodbye to Dak, say goodbye to Jimmy G, and hopefully capture what Tampa Bay did this year?
I don't agree with Dak. I think Dak is as good a quarterback as you will find. I just think with that injury, it was such a brutal injury. And
ugly.
And the fact that he was in a contract year and all of the stories that was going on out of Dallas.
Man, I agree with all of that. But one thing I learned from you is there is no loyalty in football.
There's loyalty.
And I look at the Jones family. I know they built themselves a beautiful stadium at taxpayers' expense.
Yes.
But if they think they can get one over and move on, You think they would pass on that opportunity?
But who is going to be better than Dak?
I don't know the answer to that.
Because Matthew Stafford is not better
in their
than
mind.
Dak.
I'm talking about in their mind.
Right.
Because you look at it, because you know there's been huge disappointment because they haven't done anything.
Right.
Beautiful building, talented players.
Well,
They got Zeke, they got Dak. I mean, what, you know.
They need to look in the mirror then. It's like,
Well, hey, and that's my point. That's the man making this decision. That's where I think all of them, have, you could do chapter and verse about, yes, but. He's on the list, and I think it's fair to put him on the list. I don't know if I was in charge in Dallas that I would do that, though, is my point.
I would not.
And I think I miss Sam Darnold, but he's not in not in that same conversation.
No.
But he will likely be on the move as well.
Yes.
So
No question about
it's going to be fascinating.
Yeah.
And what it is, it's going to be like you see on Facebook when somebody posts a video of the big domino setup that they got when the first one goes, and then the whole chain of them start.
Deshaun Watson is that guy.
Deshaun's the one that'll keep it going.
Yes, he is.
Because if you're the 49ers, your eye is, how do I get Deshaun Watson?
Can't get on the phone fast
And if you
enough.
can't get Deshaun Watson, then you go to plan B.
And then keep in mind the biggest fish of them all that really isn't on that list, Aaron Rodgers.
Is he on that list?
Oh, yeah, he's on that list, Mike. Because I'm telling you right now, when you listen to that post-game interview and you look at the series of events from the draft all the way forward, there is no doubt Aaron Rodgers has some ill feelings. He feels some kind of way about the Packers organization.
Cardinals go and get DeAndre Hopkins. Buffalo gets Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
What do I get?
Yeah,
if I'm him?
I mean, and I start looking at it like, okay, if he goes to San Francisco, place where he's from, that area, oh my goodness.
Let me ask you this though.
Oh my goodness.
13-3 each of the last 2 years. If you're Aaron Rodgers, you're walking away from that.
Yes, I am.
And you're also on contract for 3 more years. So if I'm the Green Bay Packers, I'm basically going to make you pull a Carson Palmer to get out because I have 3 more years on the deal you just signed.
But this is what the Packers do, though, and we talked about this stat. They are going to be the only franchise with 2 different quarterbacks that have had 1 Super Bowl win and 3 MVPs. So when you have arguably one of the best players in the entire game and you don't fill out your roster to complement that guy, there is going to be frustration. There's going to be resentment. We saw that with Brett Favre. Am I going to play? Am I not going to play? And I think you're starting to see a little bit of that with Aaron Rodgers. I think he finally understands that, oh, wait a minute, these guys aren't as loyal to me as I thought they were.
I saw a crazy stat about Aaron Rodgers. He's the only quarterback in history to have been bounced from the playoffs 3 times in games in which he threw 3 touchdowns. He's the only quarterback in history. He's been bounced from the playoffs 3 times when he played to a level that was
you need some help.
good enough to win a football game.
Well, my question about Aaron Rodgers is, to your point, Sean, is if you're the Packers front office, because I guess technically they don't have an owner, right? Because if you're the front office,
and Ted Thompson just passed,
right? What does it take for you to say, yeah, okay, we're gonna release you like we did like the Lions did Matthew Stafford? Like, I get what you're saying.
It's not what they do, though, Mike.
I understand that, but I understand because if you're going to do that, you got to have some kind of guarantee. Because the guy that you drafted is not Aaron Rodgers. If you use that Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, where you sit, learn under Brett, this guy, he was 3rd on the depth chart. It's not like everybody.
Jordan Love's not the guy.
So why did you draft him in the first place?
Excellent question. Excellent question.
Because we knew Aaron Rodgers coming out was a pretty good
But you
quarterback.
didn't. So if you're the front office, you're going to say, yeah, you're right. I know you were mopey and pouty in your post-game press conference. We're going to give it to you. Go ahead.
No, they're not going to do that.
I don't let him go.
That's not how they operate business.
I do not let him go. So I understand why Aaron Rodgers is in that because of what he said. But if I'm looking at this, if I'm the Packers, do not let him go.
It's going to be interesting.
It's going to be a fascinating offseason.
doubt.
We'll obviously keep an eye on it. All right, the other side, we got to talk a little basketball. I've got some thoughts on the Pac-12, and we'll get into the Suns a little bit. That's coming up next on Train and Gross.
Train and Gross.
I don't have any problems with the rejoin.
It's just the intro, right?
Damn it.
I thought the intro was nice this week.
So you do feel some kind of way about the intro.
It caught
Is that
me
what
off
you're
guard.
saying? Okay.
it was funny.
Dumbfounded is the word. You did say that.
That was funny.
Yeah.
Basketball.
Yeah.
College and pro.
They
Local.
basketball.
I made the comment to Sean, and I want him in on this because he's seen both the games recently, ASU, U of A.
Unfortunately.
I made the comment that the Pac-12 has an Arizona Wildcats problem when it comes to basketball.
Yeah.
And hear me out on this.
Okay.
Arguably, last 20, 25 years, your highest or second highest profile program right there. I guess you always got to give it to UCLA if you want to or not, but
Been a long time since they've been the face.
It has, but they're still UCLA, right? So you give it to them a little bit. But
I don't know if they're still
all right, so they're the
UCLA.
highest profile program in the league the last couple of years.
Okay.
They put themselves on a ban, a self-imposed ban. They will not go to the postseason this year. But the problem is they're one of the best teams in the league this year, and they would be going, and they keep beating teams, with the exception of USC and UCLA. So you've got teams that need wins to get into the tournament, aren't getting them. But that's just the kind of the tip of things. So that's the most immediate problem. The longer-term problem for the Pac-12 is, and every conference in basketball, you get shares from the TV money by putting teams into the tournament and having teams advance. So they're not going this year.
Right.
And I don't think that the NCAA for a second is going to let them off with just a one-year ban. If it's as bad as they say, they'll be missing for a couple years. So that adds to the financial problem that the conference has. And so this is for a conference that doesn't need this sort of thing. This is not a good look right now.
No, it's not a good look. And I think about teams and programs that do self-bans. Whatever they want to ban themselves for, double it.
Easy.
Because
Thank you.
to me, if you don't self-ban unless you know you're guilty. Like no team, no program that's ever been innocent has said, okay, you know what? We're not going to fight this. We know we're not going to. We know the long arm of the law is coming, so we give.
And I think there was a little bit of the New England Patriots in the Arizona Wildcats. They're like, damn, this is 2020. There's a chance that we might not even have a tournament.
Get it out of the way
So
now.
let's get it out of the way.
Yeah.
My favorite of the year is when LSU did it this year. They waited until like 3/4 the way through the season, the worst one in probably 2 decades.
Yeah, when they were
like,
0-3.
We'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and take ourselves this penalty now.
Yeah. So, like I said, this is a Pac-12's got a lot of problems, but this is a problem for Pac-12 basketball. I think. And obviously for the finances of the league, because you look at it. And I don't have the exact, and Sean, you probably remember this, I don't have the exact poll. Arizona was a middle-of-the-road team because of questioning, and they took a little bit of a hit from recruiting. And year in, year out, and I don't know how they do it. They're built on one and done. That's their bread and butter with Sean Miller down there. So this is not a team that people expected to be in the mix for a Pac-12 championship. And teams that they did expect, Bobby Hurley, I'm looking at you, they're struggling. And again, this is not necessarily the path I wanted to go down, but so this is just it's a problem. And the Pac-12 has lots of them, but this just adds to it.
The problem with the Pac-12 is that they want to believe that they're higher up in the hierarchy than what they really are, and it's almost an identity crisis.
Yeah,
you feel like you are much more established and seen in a higher regard than you really are in the broad scope of things. Because if you're not in the ACC basically, or you're not in the Big 12, nobody really cares. And that's the tough part that people have to come to grips with. And living in the heart of Pac-12 country, that's especially tough to have to say. But when you look at Final Fours and you look at top seeds each and every year in the tournament, when they have the tournament, you don't see Pac-12 teams, up and down those regions. You don't see them, with there's 2 in this bracket, there's 2 in this bracket, there's 2 over here, and there's 1 over here. You just don't see a lot of that. You see maybe 1, maybe 2 in the entire tournament, and those guys usually exit out pretty easily, pretty quietly, pretty early. So
what did the Big Ten get last year? Like 9 or 10 teams in? And part of the issue is competitive balance and just and the other side is monetary.
Yeah.
And a big part of the gap, the widening gap, is the lack of revenue for these teams.
And it ain't just basketball, too.
No, that's the point. And it's the end of January. Joe Lunardi's doing his brackets, and he's got 3 teams in. So that's they're right there with the.
Are we going to have a tournament this year, though?
Well, and again, that was the point earlier with Arizona. Their plan is to take everybody to Indianapolis and have a centralized quasi-bubble tournament in all the facilities in and around the Indianapolis area, right by the NCAA headquarters.
Do they have 64? I lived in Indianapolis. I don't know if they have 64 hotels.
Dude, they're going to be. They've got the hotel space.
They do have the hotel space.
There was somebody from Indiana was on something I was listening to. They do have. They're very confident in the hotel space, And they're also
Really?
confident in the facilities to run a 60 – how many teams is it now? 68, 69?
It's the 68. So
68 team tournament.
Yeah.
So between big high school gyms, between small colleges, and they're talking about at the outset even using putting multiple courts down in Lucas Oil Field and playing games simultaneously.
Wow.
But I think that
that's AAU style, right?
Well, that's the trade-off as opposed to having people come and go. Because again, it's 2020. You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
And for the NCAA, the most important thing is what? CBS.
CBS, yeah.
Or Viacom,
TV.
I guess.
TV.
Get your TV money.
Yeah, and I forgot all about that, Mike. You could pull that off, and if you were to have multiple games in a Lucas Oil Stadium, it makes sense because you're not going to be able to have the fans anyway. So it's not like you're going to have just one showcase game every single night. There's going to be multiple games going on in the same arena, preferably.
And the other thing that happens is the officials. They travel too, and UConn shut down their program because one of the officials that worked their game was COVID positive.
Yeah.
So
That's
you got to
crazy.
get the officials into Indianapolis, and lock them down too. It's so crazy what's going on.
I mean, Mike, I wonder about the space in Indianapolis. Like, I mean, I know it's been a while since I lived there, but I just don't remember that being the biggest city in the world and having enough hotels. Because you got to think, like, you're bringing the basketball team, you're bringing the coaches,
Yeah.
you're probably bringing a few front office people, and
Maybe they limit it this year. And to your point, they got but even with that, how do you lock it down? How do you? But I like their odds there better than putting people on planes flying them around, because thinking about the ASU Invitational opening round of the NCAA tournament, right? You fly to Dayton and then you get on a plane immediately if you win and go someplace else.
Yeah.
And so that movement, I think, is what's scaring them.
No doubt.
And if they get them all in there,
we'll see.
It'll be interesting to see. Meanwhile, the National Basketball Association, what to make of our Phoenix Suns? Because I heard somebody, and I want to give credit, but I can't. Local radio here in Arizona talked about 15 games in, after a nice start, a lot of attention. The Suns have the same record after 15 that they had a year ago. They're in the 7th seed in the West right now, if the playoffs were to begin.
there you go. There you go.
And what do we make of the Suns? Because it's been, like I said, it was a wonderful start and gave people a lot of hope.
Sure.
But it's been a little bit of a struggle. Not a good look back to back against the Denver Nuggets, a team that those are one of the teams you have to climb over in the West.
Mike, the West is so loaded. When you really look at the top teams in the West, of course you got the LA teams, you got Denver, you got to have Portland in there. You start thinking about the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah.
There are a lot of teams that are going to have a say. The Utah Jazz, another team. I mean, there are so many teams that are locked in. I can see them getting – if they can get to the playoffs, to me that's a huge win. Even with Chris Paul and Monty and
so just the 8th seed get in and
just
get that monkey off your back.
Get that off your back. I think that's a huge win for the Phoenix Suns in 2020/2021.
Chris Schubert, who's Sean Crespin's partner on the podcast, and I used to do a radio show together, and admittedly not for the Suns, but we would do this when the Coyotes were getting ready to choke away a playoff spot.
Right.
But you look at it, your worry index, I think Chris called it, where you look behind you. If you're the Phoenix Suns, you look behind you in the 7th spot, and you're like, we know we're not going to catch the Lakers. We know we're not going to catch the Clippers. So to your point, how do you secure that playoff spot? And you look behind you and say, are you worried about the Dallas Mavericks if you're the Phoenix Suns? Because right now, again, admittedly, we're not all the way in. Shortened season, but not that short. Dallas is on the outside looking in right now.
Right.
San Antonio is on the outside looking in. I look at Dallas and say, yeah, if I'm the Suns or teams at the bottom, that's a team that I'm looking at saying, you know what? I worry about them coming up on me.
And I'm going to say this, Mike, and please, everybody that's listening out there, please don't take this the wrong way, but size matters. And I think about the Phoenix Suns. They are not the biggest team in the world. And when you start talking about the size of the teams overall, it is going to be difficult for them to match up with some of the better teams, because the better teams, their advantage is their size.
Yeah.
And when you have a smaller point guard who's a quintessential point guard, a guy that doesn't really look to score as much as he used to, and Chris Paul, who never really looked to score, then you're asking the DeAndre Aytons and you're asking Devin Bookers to have Herculean efforts in order to make up those points that maybe Chris Paul doesn't.
Well, and part of it too in the NBA too. I admittedly don't watch a ton of this.
Sure.
But the last couple of games against the Nuggets, I've been intrigued about close losses in the fourth quarter. You got to learn how to win.
Yes.
Right. And Chris Paul, that's on his list of things.
He knows
to do.
how to win.
That's on his list of things to do here. And apparently now you look at this team hasn't really taken that lesson hasn't taken hold yet. And look, you can say what you want. Denver's a good team, so okay, you write that off. But they lost in the fourth quarter and overtime to a really, really bad Pistons team.
Yeah.
Right. So this is a common theme with this Phoenix Suns team.
Yeah.
But I think the size issue goes into that as well, because if you're playing up and down and it's it's not a tight game, you can get away with that. When it tightens up and it's close late, what happens? It slows down a little bit. And teams are banging away.
Yeah.
And that's what I saw, watching those two games anyways, that you're exactly right. Physically, there's just some separation.
There is. And I think about – and we were here for Mike D'Antoni and the fun and gun and under 7 seconds, if you will, before they got a shot up. If you're going to commit to that, then I'm okay with that, because now you're going to be faster. You're going to be quicker than your teams that have all the size, and you're just going to run them off the court. Mm-hmm. And I get that, but I think with this team that has the makeup that it has, I don't see them being that fun and run and gun type team. I see them being a team that wants to win the old-fashioned way, and I think Monty Williams is very much an old-school coach in that respect. Yes, he has some adaptability, and, of course, I'm going to always root for him because he's a fellow Irishman, but –
cheer, cheer.
Cheer, cheer. That's right. I look at this team and I just wonder and I worry, do they have enough size to really compete and make any kind of noise in the Western Conference playoffs?
And my DeAndre Ayton stat. And he's playing better. I think you look at him statistically, he's better this year, particularly on the rebounding side. But his free throws, he's still under 3 free throws a game.
Mike, does he scare you? Like when you start talking about a physical presence underneath the basket, a guy that's going to protect the rim and be that force that people just don't want to see, does he come off as that guy to you?
No. Hey, look, he's wonderfully gifted and he's got amazing skills.
Yes.
They expect him to be a 5 and he wants to be a 3. Is that off base?
No, it's not off base at all. But I think about, and to me, Dallas is one of those teams that I look at the Suns and I can compare those two teams. And when you start looking at Luka Doncic and how he plays, you look at Kristaps Porzingis, and you look at some of the other shooters that they have, Tim Hardaway Jr. Mm-hmm. They've got some firepower now. Yeah, this isn't the same Dallas team that is just happy to be there and you're a guaranteed win. Those are the type of teams that they're going to have to consistently beat. And I don't know if I see that in 2020/2021.
Are we going to be talking about the Phoenix Suns and Luka Doncic like we still talk about the Cardinals and Adrian Peterson?
Absolutely. You have to. You're obligated to, because he is going to be one of the faces of the entire NBA. He's going to win an MVP before it's all said and done.
Might do it this year.
Ooh, he's got a long wait. I mean, Kevin Durant's doing some LeBron's doing some things.
And I don't remember where we were when this draft happened. We weren't doing this podcast. But did the Suns take a ton of heat for that?
Yeah,
No.
because we had to coach. We had
that's what
Luka's
I'm saying.
coach.
Yeah, but at the time, the Valley was. It was almost like the
7
safe.
foot.
It was like,
7 foot.
But it was also he played at U of A. It was like the safe pick for the Suns, right? Because if he flamed out, it was like, it's more on DeAndre than the Suns themselves. Even right now, I don't think the Suns catch a lot of heat for making that pick right now. Locally, I don't. Locally, I really don't. Like
every time I watch Luka Doncic play, I lament.
It hurts.
Yes,
yeah,
like how in the world did we not have this kid?
You know what it comes back around
our
to?
team?
Because you just mentioned it. You had Igor Kokoshkov, the coach at the time for the Phoenix Suns. He was Luka's coach at one point. Luka knew everything about. He knew everything about Luka. You know that he would have made that pick if it was up to him. So where did that come from? That was above.
Sarver.
Thank you.
Isn't he a U of A guy? Like, doesn't he donate to
yes,
U of A? Yeah,
big time.
He's big
Matter
time
of fact,
guy.
when I was working with the Suns, we used to go up north every year for training camp, and all of a sudden we had to do our stuff down in Tucson as soon as that purchase was made. So
Can we just daydream a Devin Booker and a Luka Doncic together?
There you go.
it's pretty good, man.
Wow.
Man. Yeah, that's a good point. And that's not, look,
That's all I'm saying.
Well, and think
he's
about-
only 22, and that's a lot to put on a guy.
Think about how many things potentially change too if that draft pick happens. Because Igor Kokoshkov got this Steve Wilkes treatment. 1 year, done, right, gone.
So unfair.
So, but I guarantee you that doesn't happen if Luka was drafted. Guarantee you. So now you don't have Monty Williams. Now everything is different. Everything. So who knows where you're at? Chris Paul's not here.
All I'm saying is we saw Luka Doncic just last year take a team that wasn't supposed to have any business being competitive with the Clippers, almost get them to 7 games. Almost by himself. Without Kristaps Porzingis, by the way.
Single-handedly.
Single-handedly. And I'm just saying you have that prolific type of facilitator with a shooter like Devin Booker, and then you surround them with guys. Pick your poison. Pick 12 guys out of a lineup and surround those guys. I think you're going to be a much better team. Yeah.
Let's check the clock on the wall. Hey, it's time for Pump the Brakes.
Go. Let's get to it, brother. I can't wait.
I'll be on the other side. Training Grose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
At the day job,
Uh-huh.
I started playing this in the background for my meetings.
Uh-huh.
My boss was like,
Come on.
no.
He put the kibosh on it?
I said, come on.
What?
The meeting will be cooler if we play this music.
That's a hold up right there. Hold
Right.
up, man.
I don't think she listens.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Shit, listen.
I don't think she's one of our subscribers yet.
No, okay. Well, that's
Anyways,
nobody's perfect.
if you're a regular listener to the podcast, you know what the music means.
We appreciate you.
And we do appreciate you. And this is arguably the best segment of the show. We'll set the watch, and we say we're going to do about 10 minutes.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh.
What was the one you sent us a text one day? It's
This
like,
segment went 30. We were at like an hour and 15, hour 20 for the show. Yeah. It happens. This podcast is what it's here for.
Yeah.
stop talking about the Super Bowl. We got to do Pump the Brakes.
Pump
Oh, we got a couple Super Bowl topics here, so this is where I'm going to start.
Here we go.
Pump the brakes or not. Cardinal fans should be excited for Bruce Arians potentially winning a Super Bowl. Pump the brakes or not.
Why would you ever be excited about your ex finding the love of their life and moving on and living happily ever after?
Because he didn't do you wrong, right? There was legitimate health problems.
Still an
and-
ex.
And the wife was saying,
It's
you're
still an
done,
ex.
and he
It's
had to
still
move
an ex.
on.
It's still a former lover. It's still
So
not
you
the
feel
one
some
that you're
kind of
with
way
now.
about it if you're a Cardinal fan. You're seeing, damn, that should be us.
I'm a Cardinals fan. I'm rooting for Kansas City.
I mean, I'm just saying, think about, okay, we're going to have to go way back here, Sean. But think about some of your old girlfriends.
Of course.
Do you really look at them and think I'm really happy that they moved
I'm
on?
happy you married a stockbroker and live in a huge mansion in Paradise Valley.
Depends on which one we're talking about, but yeah. But I get your point.
That crazy
Yes.
one?
Anytime that you have an ex.
Do you have the bobblehead one?
Oh, I got to tell you guys that's a whole. You will derail the show if we go down that story. Yeah,
That was
me.
you?
That was me.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I'll tell you off.
You see how the light bulb went?
That's another podcast.
Look, here's where I'm at.
Hold up.
Here's where I'm at on this one.
Well
because
done. Well done.
I do not harbor any ill will towards the Tom Brady phenomenon. I'm happy. I'm a Michigan guy, right? So when people hate the
Somebody had to do it, though.
right, but no, I'm talking about people that just Tom Brady this and Tom Brady that.
It's just
the
Tom Brady
Patriots.
fatigue. It's just fatigue. They're
It
just
is.
tired
I
of
have it.
And so that's where I get that crossed up with the Bruce, because I agree with you on Bruce Arians. You left, the health reasons,
So
whatever.
You're pumping them then too.
You left us. But when it comes to Tampa Bay, am I more excited about Tom Brady getting that win and taking Bruce Arians along with him? Because that's how I'll look at a Tampa Bay win.
And I also think about Todd Bowles and Harold Goodwin.
All those guys.
The coaching staff. Those are good guys. Those are guys that I knew personally and I had relationships with. And I always want to see my guys succeed.
And look, we talk about being a Lions fan. We're also, I'm sure, talking to some Cardinals fans.
Larry Foote.
With the exception of the year that you went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
excuse
thank you
me.
so much.
Those were some pretty darn good years for the Cardinals and Cardinal fans. And so, yeah, so those guys you feel good for, but
Well, and I think there's a couple of those years, like some of the Carson injury years, where there's the what if factor. That's
They
still
have been
there.
healthy.
Tyrann Mathieu hurting his knee.
Yeah, Tyrann Mathieu. Yeah, who's also in this Super Bowl, by the way.
I'm
For
with
the
B.
second time.
I'm with B.
Yeah.
You got to pump the brakes.
All right,
the
so we'll
brakes,
pump
yeah.
them. So you're not excited for Brew? I'm a little disappointed.
I'm not saying that. I mean, I have a relationship aside from Arizona with Briat. Me and BA go back to 98.
I'm saying
with
Cardinal
Indianapolis.
fan, like the fans
Yeah.
out there, sure.
Yeah, the fans, no, you can never
All
be
right.
excited for
I like the
somebody else.
girlfriend reference. That's
That's a
spot
good
on.
one.
Yeah.
All right. Number 2. So the team most likely, because the Chiefs have now 3-time AFC champions in a row. The team most likely
Well, no,
to
2 times in a row.
That's right, 2 times.
Played in the game.
They are
They hosted it 3 straight
They are
years.
one offsides penalty away, by the way,
That's
from
right.
being back to back to back.
Right. Shout
So
out
anyway,
to D Ford.
yeah, that was brutal, man.
Yeah.
The team most likely to dethrone the Chiefs as AFC champions next year is that Bills team they just won easily against. Pump the brakes or not?
Pump the brakes. This is going to sound crazy.
You're going to say my Raiders, and it's going to make me so happy.
Look at him.
I'm not going to say your Raiders.
Oh,
Hold up.
no.
I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns.
Stop it.
Wait.
So just hear me out. We saw Baker Mayfield take one of the biggest steps forward of any quarterback that was a marginal quarterback in a long, long time. Because we're talking about a guy that is on every other commercial for Progressive, who's great at those commercials.
They're really good.
By the way,
yes.
they're good.
Yes.
Great at those, by the way. But he finally got a game to go with the attention that he's got with him. And you think about that team, yes, they didn't have enough to compete with Kansas City this year, but you throw in another weapon like an Odell Beckham Jr., who is already with the talented team, you put that type of talent in the mix with that already loaded roster. You got loaded in the backfield. You got receivers, a tight end that can play, and then you get them healthy on the offensive line, and that defense is opportunistic. I'm just saying, don't sleep on the Cleveland Browns going forward.
I somewhat agree with you on your assessment of the Browns. I'm not going there. But you even saw, because you and I were texting mid-season about some of the stuff Baker was doing, how he evolved and progressed even with this year, and as the lights got brighter, played a lot better. So
Without Odell Beckham.
Without Odell Beckham Jr.
Do you trade Odell Beckham Jr.?
No. I can never have too many good receivers. Hello, Houston.
We have a problem. I'm going with Buffalo.
So you are. So you're not pumping the brakes?
I'm not pumping the brakes. I think if there is anybody that's going to do it. The other thing, though, I think that bears keeping an eye on this, the team that may dislodge the Kansas City Chiefs might just be the Kansas City Chiefs, because you see in professional sports, particularly the NFL and the salary cap era, how hard it is to maintain and keep this thing together, right?
Yeah.
You have Tom Brady, thank you very much. That's the exception. That's not the rule. You don't have dynasties in the NFL.
See, the thing about that is there really isn't a right answer to this question, because the Kansas City Chiefs have already thought about that, which is why they made a cap-friendly deal for $500 million for their franchise quarterback. Remember, he could have gotten more.
$1 billion.
He actually could have gotten more, but he said he made a deal that assured that some of his players would be able to get taken care of, and that they could keep this thing around for a few years. And so, will it happen eventually? Yes, I believe that, but I don't think it's going to happen next year or maybe even the year after that, because they'll have enough money financially to keep this team pretty much intact and keep this thing going back to back.
Well,
I can see how that contract negotiation goes. I'm going to write down a number on a piece of paper and slide it across the table. I'll be like, how many zeros are in $1 billion?
The only thing that could really derail this team, though, in my honest assessment, is injuries. And we saw that with injuries with Schwartz and with Eric Fisher. Both of their tackles are out, and we see what Tampa Bay does well. They get after passes.
And that was kind of my point. It's like, you don't how hard it is to maintain that run. But
the more you play, the more you're susceptible to injury.
Absolutely,
Mike.
yeah.
And so that's why you don't see a lot of long-term success with teams going to Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl because it's a war of attrition. You play more games, you're more likely to get injured, and that's just the nature of the beast.
It's like you're looking at my list here for my next question. So you guys were talking about Aaron Rodgers. I mean, if you're Green Bay, you go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, and you've been to 2 Super Bowls in, 30-plus years of football? So the question here, pump the brakes or not? Getting to a Super Bowl in the NFL is the biggest team accomplishment in the 4 major team sports.
Oh, I'll go with that. I'm going with that. I'm not pumping the brakes on that
because
at all.
it's so you look at things like that, like Drew Brees has been. We talked about this, I think, in the last podcast. Drew Brees has been to 1.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers been to 1.
Yeah.
Brett Favre went to 2-1-1.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, think about John Elway's path to finally get his. Think about, it is.
You don't get there without Terrell Davis.
Jim Kelly doesn't get 1. Dan Marino doesn't get 1. Steve Young only gets 1. Think about the quarterbacks that only got 1 that we hold up as the greatest of all time.
Well, they even put in Dan Marino, who's got none.
None. That's what I'm saying.
You look at it and say, like, what's the equivalent of Aaron Rodgers in the National Basketball Association, right? Like, when you have that great of an individual talent, it's easy to put 2 or 3 other pieces around to get your team to that point, right? Where you can't do it in the NFL, clearly, because, again, his talent, there's no questioning it. But the numbers you just gave, 1 Super Bowl.
I'm gonna give you an equivalent. Your 2004 Detroit Pistons.
Ooh. All right. Did they have who was their Aaron Rodgers though?
I believe it was Chauncey Billups.
Mr. Big Shot.
Mr. Big Shot.
I love that guy.
Because they brought in Rasheed Wallace midway through the season, and they had pieces that were good, but Ben Wallace was not a dominant big man, and one
of the best introductions in all of professional sports.
No question. No question.
You should drive me nuts.
Richard Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince, those guys, they were good, but they weren't
that's fair.
Tops in there. But collectively, they were good.
Remember who they beat? That was the Lakers super team, if I remember right, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
When they got everybody over there.
Yeah.
But it's hard. So
the glove.
The glove. Yeah. Number 4. I think you guys somewhat answered this in the previous segment. You're confident in the 4-game stretch that we've just seen that DeAndre Ayton has turned a corner as an NBA player.
Oh, pump the brakes. Until he dominates other big men. Until he can go out there and he has one of those monster games where it's not about Devin Booker, it's not about Chris Paul. Hell, it's not even about Monty Williams. It's just about DeAndre Ayton going down to the post, putting his big behind on somebody and saying, give me the damn ball, a la Keyshawn Johnson, and he just go to work for, 48 minutes?
Yep.
If he does that against one of these big men that are one of the tops in the league, I don't know. You got to do it to a joker.
The 26 and 17 the other night was nice. Followed it up with another 20-some-odd and 13, I believe it was. I think it was 24 and 13.
But was he the story of the game?
No, they lost one of those games.
I'm pumping the brakes, too. I'm pumping. You're going to see it, and you would expect it. We talked about it a moment ago, where he was drafted and what he should mean to this team. So you're going to expect that you get numbers like that out of him on a more consistent basis, so not from time to time.
You're not
on that one. And I go back to it, and I think
it's been 4 games now. He's played solid.
I think it's an extension of what you said. Here's a 6'11" dude that's averaging less than 3 free throws a game. I know it's something. It's one. There's a huge stat line.
That's mind-boggling.
That's always been the thing.
There's a huge. When you look at all the stats and analytics, it's one thing. I think it's 2.7 or 2.8 free throws attempted per game, and he's only shooting at like a 72% clip.
Yeah.
His rebounding numbers are trending up. Love that. Scoring a little bit down. More talent on that team, so that there's going to be a trade-off.
You're seeing an aggressive nature finally. Like you're seeing him just punch on somebody one time. Like you're seeing that.
But the thing that when you start talking about aggressive, and I'm going to always use Shaq as that measuring stick. Even though Shaq was terrible at the free throw line, he averaged at least 7 to 10 times per game. You had to foul him because he was going strong to the hole.
Dude's just hanging on him. Remember?
They're hanging on. Now, granted, it was almost like it was just a timeout basically for the team because he was going to probably miss one of the two. But the fact is, he was going to take a 7 to 10 free throws per game because he was that dominant, he was that aggressive. And if DeAndre Ayton could get to that level where he's taking 7 to 10 free throws a game, then you're seeing a guy playing at a really high level.
How many free throws a game did you say for Shaq attempted?
I believe it was 7 to 10.
9.
9 in this. Wow.
Almost 9.5 free throws attempted per game.
Per game.
See, that's aggressive.
That's the number, yeah.
And he was only going to make 3 or 4 of them.
Now, it was a different game back then. I understand the ball used to work down low a lot
53%.
Yeah, he's only going to make 3 or 4 of them, but he's going 9 times, and he's going to foul out the other team's guys.
Sure.
And to be fair, so I don't ever expect DeAndre Ayton to get to 9, but get me to 5, and I'll be happy. Is that a lot
this year?
Is that a lot to ask? 5 free throws attempted
This
per
year.
game for
Because it's a different game. Understand how many three-pointers are going up. The ball's not working down low like he used to. So understand it's not as many opportunities as the Shaq days.
Yeah, but I still got Joel Embiid going to the free throw line quite a bit.
And they will, if you make that part of your game, they will call it. And it's not going to be easy because he's got 3 years of the book's been written.
All right. So Ferrero, the company behind Butterfinger, the candy bar.
Whoa, hold on now.
They put out a photo of a jar of Butterfinger flavored peanut butter on Instagram. People got all worked up. People got excited. Pump the brakes or not, Butterfinger is by far the most overrated candy bar of them all.
Oh, you stop it right now. Pump the brakes.
It is. It gets all stuck on your teeth, all weird. It's not even that good. It's like they always talk about whether something's worth it, like is the juice worth the squeeze, right? Man, all that, the way it sticks to your teeth and everything for the flavor, it doesn't add up. It's the most overrated candy bar in my opinion. Apparently, you just I'll pump the brakes twice for it.
Sean. So hurt right now.
Is that your jam? Is that your Butterfingers?
I love Butterfinger, but I'm a chocolatier though. I mean,
Okay.
I love all chocolate.
He's an aficionado.
He is, yes.
But Butterfinger is one of the more underappreciated, and we talked about this during Halloween, if you remember, because there isn't a big display of Butterfingers in the supermarkets, and I have a huge problem with it because Butterfinger is one of those where it is such a tasty treat, especially when it's nice and brittle, and it's not hot and
He's
soft.
Gonna be going for a while.
No, I'm just saying, like you
It's all stuck in there.
no, man. Look, you got to put Butterfinger in the fridge before you eat it. Like you got to give it a good solid half hour before you eat it because you need that crunch, you need that flake. But overrated, no, man. I
so
can't go there.
you might have a Butterfinger.
Not peanut butter though.
Peanut butter.
Not peanut butter.
So
I got nothing. You want me to top that?
But so you agree with him though? You're pumping the brakes on my statement that it's overrated?
What he said.
Okay.
How am I going to add to that? He's a chocolatier. What? A
Chocolatier.
I'm not.
Not even a word, and I am that.
It is now.
It is now.
I'm part of the great unwashed masses here.
So
I'm like, what? You got a candy?
Just me.
What? Let's give you a plug though before we get out of here. What was that candy you broke out last week? Put it on.
Oh,
it up for everybody.
Hey, the peanut butter bars, ladies and gentlemen. This is the candy of my youth.
That's underrated.
When I used to go,
underrated.
When I would go to my grandmother's house, she had one of those tall glass candy things that had the seal at the top. You put that off the top, and you go in there, and me and my brother would sprint to see who could get the most before she swooshed us away. And my dad found me some of those, and big shout out to my dad. Love you, man. Last time I went home, he hooked me up with a couple bags.
That's the most underrated candy as far as
I'm trying to tell you.
That
That has the same texture as Butterfinger.
That was damn good.
No. They look I can't no. So that looks lighter. That looks more like a
That was damn good.
Put chocolate on that.
All right, I see it. You can have it.
You're gonna manhandle it, then give it to me.
Broke it in half.
That's all right. I'll
seconds.
eat it. I'll take it. Thank you, sir.
May I have another?
Oh. Hold up. Hey, Grandma, can I have another one? He broke mine.
No, we can't let you have a
He
broke
broke mine.
He broke my. You'll be all right.
Nah,
I feel bad, man. You had, using this as the barometer, you had a better childhood than I did because I'd go to my grandmother's house and be butterscotches.
Oh.
You know the butterscotch candy?
See, we had those in Chico sticks.
What's a Chico stick?
Oh,
You know what a Chico stick is?
No, I don't.
Chico sticks, the little orange.
I got to look them up.
Oh my gosh, I got so much to teach you guys, man. It's insane. Like,
So you're not a chocolatier. You're a candy tier.
I'm a sweet tier. I'm a sweet tier. Is that a word? Sweet tier.
It is now.
Sweet tier.
Chico stick. Okay, I see. Oh, I know what those are.
Let me see.
Yeah,
Can I be
man.
perfectly honest? Never had one.
Those are delicious.
Never had one.
I've never.
Mike, Sean, I'm telling you, fellas, you
Never.
don't know what you're
You
missing
haven't
out on.
steered me wrong yet,
You never have.
so I'll give you that.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Every time we come down here, it's something else.
I'm just saying. And every time I give you something, it's always, oh, okay.
Sean and I coming in, usually, he's got a little, he's out of the game now. But it's like you and your brother running into your
30 more
grandmother's
days.
house.
Oh, yeah.
We run into B trains. We're like,
What we gonna get today?
He's got tamales today.
Pretzels, tamales, candy,
What do you call it? Tootsie Pops? The berry.
Tootsie Pops for
the
best.
berry
Berry
flavored.
flavored.
Why berry? Oh, wait.
Ah, see what you did there.
You see what I did? Come on.
Wrap us up. Get us out of here.
Tell me again how this segment goes so long.
No idea.
I forget how it happened.
Oh, God.
Hey, look, I stayed on script.
Yeah, nothing on there.
Nothing on there. That's going to do it for this edition of Train and Grose. Thanks for finding us. And don't forget, follow us on Twitter at Train and Grose. And we'll see you next time.
I holla.